Hello everyone. So this is our sentiment analysis in memory computing session, working with DB2 and RStudio in a cloud environment. And I'm Yelena, and I'm gonna be doing your session tonight. So here is tonight's agenda. We're gonna talk about the sentiment analysis assignment, what you need to do, right? In general, your do's and don'ts, some common errors that people made. We're going to talk about the data load validation. We're going to do a lot of SQL refresher, a little bit tips on RStudio environment and some troubleshooting tips. And to be quite honest, some students did tell me that this assignment might be the most challenging in this course, okay? Well, now some reminders. Where do you post your questions? If you need assistance with using DB2 service, or troubleshooting the data load issues, you're going to submit a ticket, right? Issue with Cloud Pak environment, anything on IBM Cloud, help with SQL and R code, etc., right? And also you've got the ungraded SQL exercises. If you need some hints, you're going to submit the Salesforce ticket. On the other hand, if you have questions about the syllabus, non-software related questions, you're going to post in the classroom. There is a separate discussion for any broken links that you might find. If you have a question about your specific grade, you're gonna email directly to the instructor. Okay, makes sense, hopefully. So now, so I have to be a broken record here. Please, do not submit tickets to IBM unless I tell you to, all right? Please do not cancel your IBM Cloud account and do not enter credit card number. Do not upgrade, because if you do enter your credit card number, your account will convert to paid and there is no way to get it back to academic, all right? You're going to be using RStudio, which is on the cloud. Please do not upgrade the R version in an RStudio environment. And please do not try not to add more than one DB2 instance. Well, there is no harm if you can, but probably, but well, the thing is, if you have two instances, right? You load data into one, and then you're trying to query the data in the other, you're gonna be, where is my table, right? So don't confuse yourself. Unless I tell you to try adding another instance. There are cases when something happens to DB2 service, it does. Okay, so before you install our packages, please check with me, because sometimes we don't want you to install something that could be an overkill, right? Something, remember, this is a cloud version, which is different from the version that you would have used on your PC, right? Do not open RStudio in multiple browser tabs. The thing is, RStudio does require capacity hours. And you might be saying, what am I gonna do? I ran out of hours on assignment, on last assignment. Well, here comes the good news. Today's 26, February has 28 months. Late in the evening on 28, you're gonna get 10 hours for the next month. You can still do the DB2 part of the assignment. DB2 part does not require capacity hours. So spend really good time, load your data, work on the queries, do the write-up for that part of the assignment, or whatever that is, do the questions, right? So if the data load is running, avoid stopping, because when you cancel, you trigger another process, okay? And then this is very important. Not sure how many times I can tell. Do not copy your code to Microsoft Word. SQL gets really sensitive. Microsoft Word inserts some type of characters like Microsoft Word code, and it's gonna break everything. It's gonna break everything, right? So, well, okay, the question is about the libraries. The libraries that you're using in exercise, I believe they're installed, but they keep on changing the R image. But they were installed. If not, let me know. But there are a couple that you need to install for text analysis. There are a few. If it says to install, then you do. But remember, in R, the library the package can be installed, but it's not available until you load it in memory, right? So some of them you have to load in memory. Whatever is in the tutorial, it's safe, right? And whatever is not in the tutorial, you better check, all right? So avoid using browser back button. Remember how to exit the RStudio, and you remember how to check, right? You remember how to check your capacity hours, right? Because you launch RStudio from where? From the project. You may reuse the project, Cloudpak project that you created for your last assignment. And please do not spend days on debugging the same error. You have an Ask TA lifeline, right? What you do is submit the ticket and I'll try to help you as best I can. You download the CSV file from the course content, right? From assignment folder. But please avoid opening that file because if you open it just even for a fraction of a second, it's going to corrupt the date formats. I had to fix the date formats. I opened that CSV file in a TextPad to fix those date formats. Please don't reopen it in Excel because it's going to ruin the date formatting. Okay? Now, so let's look at the big picture. What's going to happen? So you've got the data, right? You're going to read the data description and you're going to find the business problem. Like in your case, for your tutorial, you're analyzing airlines reviews, right? That's a business problem. You're going to load the CSV file into DB2 on the cloud. Then you're going to check the log. It may see if there are any issues or warnings. And I help you. I resolve some of the issues with original data on your behalf, right? You want to save the screenshot of the load status. But if you forgot to save it at the time when you loaded data, I'll show you where to get it. You want to check the table metadata. Why? Because how are you going to check if the data was loaded as expected? Are you going to go through every single row and compare? No. What you want to do is you want to check the table structures such as fields and their data types. Then you want to check probably the row count. Maybe you want to preview the first 10 rows. Maybe you can do some frequency counts, etc. But then you see you're going to use SQL to analyze data and you want to write some queries that are meaningful. Something that returns total and subtotals, perhaps. You're going to load data into R environment and you're going to analyze the data with R and interpret findings. You interpret your findings. Several semesters ago, it was possible to read the data in R from database. I like that approach more than the approach we use now. Now it's not possible, but it was possible to, in the R code, you would connect directly to the database, read data from the database in a data frame and do the analysis. It was possible. Now it's not. So that's why instead we're going to load the data to the object storage. All right. Okay, so what is a DB2 Cloud? It has 200 megabytes of data storage for free, and it has built-in analysis. You can, in the past at least, you can do R model and you can read the data straight. You have the advanced data processing. So basically, you're not loading the entire data set in memory. You only loading the data that matches the selection criteria. You're prefetching data and you load just data that the one that's actually needed. You're not loading the whole table, right? So no decompression required. And again, large chunks of data not relevant to the query will be skipped. So that's a DB2 on the cloud. That's what we use for this. And what can you do? What predictive modeling can you do with your data? You can do the trend analysis. You can look at the associations of terms. You can do some decision tree if you want, clustering, hierarchical clustering, network of terms, right? So, and you can run the analysis on a database. So you can write, well, in general, DB2 can be connected to some internal applications. All right, just keep that in mind. Okay, few things to keep in mind. here. Suppose that you delete the service. What's gonna happen? If you create another instance of the service, you will have to reload your data again. That deletion cannot be undone. You have to redo. And also, if you're not saving your SQL code, a copy of your SQL code, like I'm doing here in a text file on my PC, then if you only save the code in a DB2, right, you're gonna lose it if you delete the service. So just remember it, okay? But there are some cases where something goes wrong with the server node. It's a distributed database. So sometimes there are cases when I have to tell the student that please add another instance of DB2. By chance, it could be placed on another node that is up. It happens, okay? So please, when you got your work in SQL, right? Or in the meantime, keep saving your SQL on a local PC. Do not rely on the service to be up all the time. There is maintenance, there are other things going on. Okay? So, very important, you have to create, you have to go to the service credentials and you need to create the credentials because that creates the database, the schema. So what schema? It's your username, right? And password. This is actually what you would use if you were going to connect to the database from outside applications. But here you are working within application. You still need to have a schema. It's a location where all your tables are stored. You load in data in tables and tables will be stored in your schema, right? So you have to get the credentials. And if you don't see this option to create the credentials, maybe you are in a cloud pack instead of IBM Cloud. Remember the differences between IBM Cloud and Cloud Pack? On the IBM Cloud, you can do things like credentials, you can administer the service. You cannot do it on Cloud Pack, right? So make sure you are on IBM Cloud when you add this service, okay? All right, so for today's example, we're gonna be using hotel data. I'm not going to be repeating your assignment, but instead I'm going to be doing the hotel review. So you have, you know, the address, you know, the hotel category, you know, you have the country, city, latitude, longitude, and you have the information about the reviewer, right? And you know the sentiment of the review and review text, review title, right? If you load the data, you would need to make these changes to the lens, because what's happening is when you load data, DB2 tries to guess, let's say, what the field width is, and it's looking at the first certain number of records to do that, but it was not guessing it correctly, so I put this for you. I figured it out on your behalf, and you have this little cheat sheet. I'm gonna give you the copy of the data, but if you want to follow along SQL part, you can upload the data and you follow this to make some changes, right? So like if you load, see this? Oh, and how do you access? You add the service once and you access it where? On the resource list, right? Well, I'm probably a bad example because I have multiple instances of the services that I may have to delete from last semester. All right, so after you edit the service, you're gonna access it where? From resource list. It's gonna be in the databases, right? And I find, well, see, the thing is that one, it's this one, the ones that I edit this semester. I have to delete the old ones because they're no use. If you don't access the service for a certain number of days, it's gonna be locked, and that's it, okay? So I clicked on go to UI, right? And what you will do, you'll be loading the data. That's the first part, right? So you go here, you click on the data, you're going to upload the file, right? You're gonna upload the file from your hard drive, right? And then you're gonna specify the target is gonna be what? It's a file. Well, it's a source, sorry. Target is gonna be the table. You're gonna be creating the new table, then you're gonna be adjusting the column widths, and then you're gonna be running. Suppose that you finished loading the data, everything went okay, but you forgot to take screenshot. Not a big deal. See this is the load history here. You're gonna go here and you can always see this. Let me see. I double click on this record and this tells me that I loaded airline sentiment, and this here tells me how long the load took. The screenshot that you submit must show the number of rows that were read, number of rows loaded, and hopefully there are no rejected rows. You want to show the start time and end time. It's very important information, how long the load took, right? Then see, like I could go back to load history. So I loaded the hotel's review file, and that's a number of records, all right? Then there are no errors and no warnings. There were errors, I fixed all of them. So that we deal with clean data just to isolate the concepts here. I don't want people spending the whole week to clean the data, right? All right? So this is what the data load is information. Number of errors, number of warnings should be 0. So once the load is complete, you want to compare, you know the number of rows, right? So you want to check for the warnings, etc. But there were errors and warnings when I took initial file because some of the cells, they contain the new line character, so I had to delete that. And there were issues with formatting. I had to fix the date format in the notepad. All right. So I'll be talking about the programmatic data load validation. I loaded my data. How do I validate data programmatically? Programmatic means by running the code, right? We're going to talk about SQL today, but what am I doing in here? Select specifies what I want to select. Count star, well, it just counting the number of rows, and I added the column and I added the alias. So I want to call this whatever gets selected as number of rows. And is it going to return the number of rows in this table? Make sure that this number of rows matches the number of rows that were read from the table, right? What were read from the file. You saw the screenshot where it showed, like in my case, it's hotel reviews, right? I did show you the screenshot where it showed the here. See this? It's number of rows that are read. It should be exactly the number of rows that are returned by the query. Okay. Next thing is that you want to, there is a table called system tables that you want to check. This is called the table metadata table. It's checking for example, you can select the table name, who created the table, and the time when the table was created, right? And also the number of columns. This is what's going to return. In your exercise, you're told to put creator equals, and here you put the name of your schema, right? There are multiple ways to do that. The way I'm doing here, I'm using a variable called system underscore user. It will automatically pick up the user who is running the code. Okay? I discovered this way after the exercise was written. So when you run it for assignment, you can either put system underscore user or you can put your schema name. Okay? Your choice. Then there is another table called system columns. What that will do, it will return the column names, right? It's going to return column name, table name, who created the table, the column data type, if the column allows missing values, and the column length, right? So there are more, this table actually returns way more information that we don't need to worry about, but if you were in a database administration class, you would, but don't worry about that. And see here, so I select statement, I list the columns that I'm selecting. Then here I put the table name, but see, why is it sysIBM? SysIBM is a schema. It's another system user. And that table system column belongs to that system IBM. It belongs to the system IBM schema. All right. where table creator, you don't want to, you want to display only your tables. Well, you don't have access to someone else's tables, but you don't want to pull information on the system tables. You want to pull only on what you created, right? So here you specify, you can either put your schema name or you can put a system user. It's going to pick up your schema name here. And what else? The table name is hotel reviews in this example. Why am I doing that? Because I don't want to display for airline sentiment. I only want to see for this table, right? So I'm doing it because I have two tables at the moment. Okay. So suppose that you messed up, right? You did not load as expected. You can override the table with new data. However, this approach will not work if we need to change the data structure, right? So there are multiple things that you can do if you messed up. Perhaps you can go to the tables. This is a schema. And if I wanted to, perhaps I'm not gonna do that, but there is a way to delete, right? Oops. Like see here, like for example, hotel reviews, I can click here and well, if there is no option to delete the table here, you can write the SQL query that says something like drop table and put the table name, right? So drop table, hotel reviews, you just run the SQL code. That's one way to delete to drop the table. So if you did something that requires the changes to the structure, you will have to drop. Oh, here it is, see? So if you need to redo the data load, you need to drop the table first. Let's do it this way. If you messed up something wrong, you have to redo the data load. You're going to select the table and you're going to go here and you're going to select drop, right? Remember, delete, command delete removes the data, but it keeps the table structure. Drop will remove the table. Truncate command, it will keep the table structure, but it will delete the data, remove the data, and reclaim the table space. Reclaim the space that was disk space that was occupied by the table, right? So if you did something wrong, you're gonna go here and you're gonna drop the table, okay? This is what you'll do in order to redo the work, okay? So let's go back to the slides. So this is how to redo, right? You're gonna go to tables, find your table and do drop. And you can also do the programmatically, just by writing the drop statement, just writing the code, right? And this one, what will it do? Truncate. Truncate will keep the table structure, but it will delete all data and it will reclaim the space. It's different from delete because the delete does not reclaim automatically the space, and there is something called in the database is a redo log. So whenever you delete something, right, the entry is entered in a log, and if you were the database administrator, you could undo some of the deletions, right? You can roll back, but don't worry about that part, but just know that truncate will free up the space and truncate cannot be undone by the administrator. It's gone. Delete is a data manipulation command, so some the administrators can undo it. Well, not in this class. I don't have administrative rights, but it's a common interview question. The difference between drop, truncate, and delete. Remember that, okay? All right. So you will drop, you can write this programmatically, drop table, hotels review, but it has to match the correct, it has to be correct table name, okay? This is how to access the data load from the history. See this, you go to data, load history. If you forgot to take your screenshot, when you loaded the data, not a big deal, but in the past it was a big deal. There was no way to go to the history, now there is. Now, we're gonna review, we're gonna do a lot of SQL tonight. Each SQL statement must have select and from clause, non-negotiable. You have to specify what are you selecting and where you're selecting that from. What else is in a SQL? Where is it tells me how I want to filter the rows, right? Group by, it tells me it's for grouping data. Like for example, suppose that I want to find the average rating by hotel, right? So I would use the group by. And perhaps if I'm showing the hotel name and the average rating, I'm gonna be grouping by what? By hotel name, right? So basically what the columns that you see in the group by clause are gonna be non-aggregated columns in a select clause. Everything in the select that does not have functions like average, sum, count needs to be listed in a group by. 7, eliminate the groups. Like for example, suppose that I want to calculate the average rating for the hotel and I want to display the hotels that have an average rating above 3. I'm just giving you an example, right? So here you are not eliminating individual hotels. You're not filtering individual hotels, right? Individual ratings for the hotel. You are calculating the averages and you're filtering based on the average. So you're filtering the groups here, see? You're not filtering individual reviews. You're looking at the average, see? Now remember that the spelling of the table name and column name in your query must match the spelling of the table name and column name in the database. For example, if it's spelled hotels in the database, then it has to be hotels in your query. If the spelling does not match, then the query will return the error. It does not recognize the table, all right? So just watch out. I guess here I can show you. So we looked at some of the examples of SQL earlier today, right? But remember that the query may have multiple conditions. Here, for example, I'm showing the category, I'm showing the text from hotel review, and I have multiple conditions here. I want the review rating to be neutral. And again, here the values are case sensitive. I just know that it's spelled in a lowercase, right? Then here you want to pick the reviewers that contain traveler. You want to make this case insensitive. So if it's traveler in lowercase, or if it's traveler all in uppercase, or if every other letter is in uppercase, it does not matter. I want to pick it up anyway. So what you do is you convert this to the uppercase, right? What is like? Like is an operator that allows you to do the like a wildcard search. So this one here, present, it means that any number of any characters followed by traveler, followed by any number of any characters. So I guess I better run those queries because it's hard to understand when you just watch, right? So what you will do, you go SQL here. This is a SQL. And I already put the script for you. If you were going to load this data, please call table hotel reviews. Then in this example up here, you would need to put your schema name. This is my schema name, right? So I should run one query at a time. Just before, oops, I accidentally selected run all. Well, but for you, I'm gonna do one at a time because I want to show I want to explain you the output, right? So here I selected this and I'm gonna do run selected. What does this do? This one, it just returns the count. And I can click on this and it's gonna show me the query results, right? This is gonna give me details, which query I ran to generate the result, okay? Well, we already ran this, but see this is gonna return, these two guys here is gonna return the same because this here system user is going to pick up my schema. It's going to pick up my username that I'm using to run this query. Okay? The same, see? Oops, I should be looking at this one. See, that's an output. And if you don't see results, well, you can adjust this, guys. So here it's just telling me all tables that I own, right? I'm a creator. I created those tables. On this one, it's showing the columns, right? So let me just run it. Run selected. And up here is the results. And it's just showing the data about the table columns, like I said. Now here we just got to the query with two conditions, right? So let's run this one here. Let's run this guy. Run selected. And notice that I try to line it up so it's easier to read. Okay, so let's look at the results. Sometimes the results are big, so you can click on this arrow to show it in another window. Okay, so now what? I said that I want to include the word reviewer name, reviews name. I wanted to contain the word traveler. See this? Here, the first letter is capitalized, right? Here, it's only lowercase. Again, first letter capitalized, etc. So I don't want to depend on how it's spelled. And see that wildcard there, it tells any number of any characters. So here just traveler, here is a traveler. That's how you would do it, okay? And because I converted to uppercase, it does not matter if the first letter is capitalized or if all letters are capitalized, okay? So this one, in this case, there are 5 pages of output. If you were going to turn in the assignment, you don't need to copy all 5 pages, but you would probably do like a subset, and you will tell that this is a subset, something like that. Now, suppose that you see here a row that doesn't contain the word traveler. It means you need to go back and check your query. Something is wrong, right? Just know that. Okay. So here, so that's the one. What does a distinct do? Distinct returns the unique values. So see the select distinct review rating. You would have to run something like this for your analysis because you need to know the available values of the sentiment. So I just run the selected and it's going to give me the available ratings. Oops, I'm looking at the wrong result. I need to look at this one. See this? When you do it in your assignment, it's just negative, neutral, positive. But here there is also slightly negative, slightly positive. Pay attention to how it's spelled. To be quite honest, I would have to edit the code and do comparison all in uppercase, and you don't care about how it's spelled, lowercase or uppercase, right? Here, what is it doing here? Remember this, I want to calculate the number of records for each sentiment value. But wait a minute. Do you see this blank here? Do you see this blank? What does that mean? It means that some of my records, some of my hotel reviews are missing the value of the sentiment. So there are missing values. It's a very important topic. How do we deal with missing values here? So, well, let's do it this way. First here, I select review ratings and I do the count of review rating. So this is gonna show how many times each rating appears. Watch what's gonna happen. I'm gonna go here and do run selected. And let's see what's gonna happen. I go here. Why does it show 0? Something might be wrong, right? So this is what? Missing values. This is incorrect because if I add these numbers, the sum is not going to add to the total number of rows, right? The sum must match the total number of rows I have in the data. So what is going on in here? Okay, well, let's find out how many records are missing the rating. Let's do that first. So how missing values are represented in a database? Null, right? So let's do like this. Let's count the number of rows that are missing the rating. So this is what I'm doing here. Here I'm just going to do select count star, right? Instead of specifying the actual column, I just put the star from hotel reviews and where rating is null. So let's take a look at this. Let's run selected. Let's see what's going to happen. Wait a minute. I have 80 rows. I have 80 rows that are missing a value, right? But why, for some unknown reason, when I ran the query before, if I go back to this history, for some reason, it shows 0. Let's think about it. Why is it? Well, because when you count like this, right, when you put specific column name in here, what it does is it ignores the missing value. Counting it this way ignores missing values. On the other hand, here I do count star, right? So that's gonna count missing values. Remember the differences. When you put count star, it's gonna count missing values. When you put just count column names, it's not gonna count missing values. But what else? How can you fix that? Let's see how we can fix it. Well, I can do this. I can assume that null is unknown. There is a function called NVL. What this will do is if review rating is missing, right? If it's null, it's gonna count unknown. Okay, it's gonna treat it as unknown and count 1 just the number of times. Well, what it's doing here, it just you're doing the group by count rating. Count 1, you can do it like this. 1 is like a pseudo column, all right? So this one, what it does is it's gonna be like it treats each record as a number 1, and it's gonna count the number of number 1s per each rating. We are grouping by rating. Well, to make it correct, I would probably have to take this and copy this here, but it still works if you put the column name. All right, so this is supposed to show me the number of records per each sentiment value, but I want to treat null as unknown. So you have several options here. You can exclude null values, right? You could say something like where review rating is not null. However, I might lose some valuable data, so I'm gonna say NVL, and I'm gonna say unknown. So let's run this guy here. What is going to happen here? Am I getting the right results? Yes, now I'm getting 80. See? So this is an important topic. People who are not here and who do not watch the recording are going to miss out. But, assignment 3, the data has some missing values. All right. So, see this here? Number, I treat it as unknown, and I'm going to give you this code, okay? Okay. Now, what will this do here? Well, this is something similar, but instead of count one, I put NVL function here, and I want to treat null as unknown. Or because see this count function, it ignores missing values. If I just put these column names, all my missing values will be not counted. But I want to count the missing values. You can put 1, right? Or you can put this NVL here and count the missing values as unknown. That's another solution. And the reason I'm giving you multiple solutions because depending on which book you use, it could be done differently. So that returns the same thing, right? But on the other hand, see this is going to be incorrect because I'm counting review rating, but the column has what? It has missing values. So this is going to be wrong, right? You don't want to do incorrect. What you have to do is for yourself, add these numbers, and these numbers has to add up to the number of rows in the data. So this is wrong. You either have to put number 1 in here, or you can do count star, or you can put NVL function to treat the missing values as unknown. All right. Next query shows how many times each hotel was mentioned. What does it mean? Well, mentioned means it's a review record for hotel. So you just do the name and you count the name. But again, something to keep in mind, it's quite possible that some records may have a blank name. Sometimes it could be review for unknown hotel. So you would probably want to consider that in your query if you know that they're missing data. But I'm just going to run selected for right now. Let's see what's going to happen. This is a hotel, how many times it was mentioned in the data. So let me expand this. Let's see. It's one page, thankfully. All right. In this case, there are no, we're lucky, there are no missing values. But if there were, then I would be in trouble. The count would be wrong, right? And if I take the sum of these numbers, it should be the total number of records that I have in the data, right? So this is important because you have to be able to double check your work. All right, so now let's go back to slides. They're going to be more complicated stuff. I know. All right, this is just showing you the query with a group by. You have one grouping column, but you can have more than one grouping column. Remember that from ungraded exercises? So here you have two grouping columns, province and review rating. Then you have to list both grouping columns in a group by clause, okay? Remember that. Now, this is going to be very hard example. We looked at how many times hotel was mentioned. But now suppose I want to do this. I want to see one row per hotel. And in one column, I want to list how many positive sentiment posts. In the next column, I want to list slightly positive. Next column, I want to list how many neutral, then slightly negative, negative, unknown, right? For each hotel, I want to list how many are unknown and total. How do we do that? Well, what we could do is just think about an imaginary table where it's in here. Where you're gonna do this, like you're gonna look at each row, right? And you're gonna create a pseudo column. You're gonna create these columns like here. Let me show you. So this query here, what you want to do first, you're gonna say, okay, if that guy is, if the rating is positive, then the value in positive column is gonna be, so it's a final query. Let's go back up. It's this one. Let me run this. So this is a preparation. This is a preparation for this query. So run selected. Let's see what it's gonna do. So what I'm trying to do here is this. Oops. Let's look at this. So I'm looking at each row. I'm looking at each row. And if the sentiment is positive, I put 1 in the positive column and 0 in the rest of the column. Just think about it. Think about this output for right now. If the rating is neutral, right? I put a 1 in the neutral column. In my select statement, I can output the columns that don't actually exist in the table. The columns can be calculated column. So here I have 6 columns that are calculated. For the positive, if the sentiment is positive, that I'm returning a 1, otherwise returning a 0. For slightly positive, if sentiment is slightly positive, return a 1, and then return a 0, right? So that's what the preparation is. Now, if I was going to say how many positive reviews are for this Ambassador Inn and Suites hotel, what would you need to do is you would need to take the sum, right? Well, in general, if I was gonna ask you how many positive reviews are total, you would take the sum. The sum of this column, it gives the number of positive reviews. And if I group by hotel name, it's gonna give me the number of positive reviews per hotel, right? So in a final query, you would have to add the sum function. But this is a preparation. I wanted to show you how the preparation query codes each row. See that those are in like pseudo columns. That's what this piece is doing here. So you're looking at, like, for example, here, you pull in the name, and just for preparation, you pull in reviews rating. Then here you have a case statement. If it's positive, then 1, otherwise 0, and the column name is positive. Jesus. Then you're doing the same thing for slightly positive and for each one of this, right? And if this guy is null, then it's gonna be unknown. What this does is order by. You want to make your sorting case insensitive. And what is this? It's gonna output the nulls last. So missing value is gonna show at the end. When you do the sorting, there is an option on where you want to place the missing values. If you put nulls last, it means that missing values will gonna be at the end. All right. So that's a query. It's a preparation. You looked at that output, right? Like that. But then, if you connect the dots, what you have to do here is this. You're gonna take this and you're gonna take this and you put a sum around. You're gonna remove the review rating column because you are trying to, it's not a grouping column, you're trying to count, right, the number of ratings. So we remove this, we take in the sum, not the count, but the sum, all right? Sum, and then you're gonna take the count to get the total. Remember, you had something along this line in your other assignment. Please make sure that you understand how to do something like this, okay? For your assignment 3, to identify the A students, there is a query, something like this, okay? So let's see, I'm gonna run selected now. Let's see what it does. I'm gonna go results, okay? See that one? Now what? For your own check, if you look at this row, the sum of these numbers must match this number, right? And also, this total column needs to match the results of another query where you returned how many times each hotel is mentioned in reviews, right? So make sure that this column, the output in this column here, total, must match the output of the earlier query that we ran to see how many times each hotel is mentioned, okay? And the sum here must match this sum, right? And also, if I take the sum of the total, it has to be the number of rows in a table, all right? Just know that. And you click on details, it just shows which query you ran to generate that data and how long the query took to run, okay? All right, and let me see the questions. I see there is a question right in the chat. Oh, no, there are no capacity hours for SQL. So for the SQL, do whatever you want to do. Run it all day until your session times out, whatever. There is no capacity, okay? Well, I already answered about the packages, right? But for this one, yeah, you can, if it's a lot of relief. You can do whatever, you know. But if you are idle, the session will time out. You need to log back in. That's a different story. But just run, practice. You have ungraded exercises. Please do them, and don't worry about the time for the SQL. Okay. And again, if you run out of hours for assignment 2, do the sequel part. And then when the new month starts, and I believe it's not in the Eastern time zone, it might be in UK time zone. But then it's not midnight in here, midnight UK in UK midnight. That's when the hours are credited back and you're gonna do your R. But for this specific assignment for R, mainly you just run in the code that you're given and you're given some examples, okay? Then you choose what works for you for assignment 3. But now let's go back. Jesus, I'm using these hours, I'm just not worrying because there is no limit for the sequel, okay? Now, we're going to talk about the subquery. Subquery is a query inside the query, and you have to have a query with a subquery for your assignment. The subquery may return one value. It may return the list of values, or it may return something called the virtual table. And subquery can be placed in a select from, where, and having clause of the main query, right? You cannot put the subquery in order by and group by. If you think you can, I would like to see the query that works. You cannot, okay? Some example is if your subquery returns a single value, you're probably gonna put it in a where clause. Like for example, you want to check, perhaps you want to display the text, right? Rating text for rating that are higher than 3, just an example. Or that higher than average. Suppose you're calculating some average and you want to display somebody, individual people above average. So in the where clause, you're gonna be the selecting average. Having clause, in this case, remember that where filters individual rows, having filters out the group. Like for example, you want to show the hotels that have uh, above average rating, right? Something like that. So you are calculating the average rating for the whole hotel, see? Having eliminate the groups. And you may specify the condition to eliminate the groups, and the condition could be a subquery that returns something, and I'll show you. And if it's a table, you can place it in the from clause of the main query. Let's take a look at some examples. This query, what does it do? This is a value list example. So I want to select the provinces that do not have any positive reviews. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you have to know the provinces that have positive, right? So in a query is gonna generate the list of provinces that have a positive review, right? Then your auto query is gonna say something like where province not in the list that in a query returns. You could go ahead and plug in that list, but no, that's not. It's very laborious. You want to make it dynamic because the data may change at any time, right? So you want to have an inner query that selects that list, the list of provinces that do not have positive for you. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna just do not in, right? Or not exist, so not in, something like that, right? Depending on which language you use, okay? So let's see, let's find it here. I put more complex examples here, okay? So we stopped here, we looked at the sentiment, we count the number of times, we looked at missing values, right? So this is just how many times each hotel is mentioned. Okay, this is more complicated example. I put more complicated example here. So this one is here, how many times we want to return hotels that are mentioned more than 50 times. So how do we do it here? Oh, this one is just, this one shows you how to use the having clause, okay? This is an example of the having clause. You want to list hotels that are mentioned more than 50 times. There is no subquery in here yet. But this is just the It's just setting the stage for something. So here you're calculating how many times each hotels are mentioned. See this? Times mentioned. Now, here, this is a little bit different. You want to say how many times each sentiment mentioned, and here you're just skipping the records, missing the sentiment, right? This one we did. We did this part here. I should skip that. I should skip that. We did that. Now we're looking at the subqueries, all right? Okay, this is a problem with missing values. Oh, here it is. This is another example. Look at this. We want to list the hotels that do not have a location in Georgia. How do we do this? First of all, we need to know which hotels have location in Georgia. So this inner query here is going to return us the hotels that have here. See this? These are the hotels that have a review in Georgia, right? There is a review in Georgia. And then in here, you want to do something like where name not in the list of names returned by the inner query. That's an example. Let's run this one. Okay, and let's see what it returns. You're just looking at the hotel names that are not in Georgia, right? Where reviewer is not in Georgia. So we get a list of Georgia first, and then you checking if the value is not in that list. Well, this is what we were just looking at. Take a look at it. You can break it down. Here you get the list. This is how you would get the list of provinces that have at least one positive rating, right? See here, this is the list of provinces that have at least one positive rating. Now what? I want to select the provinces that do not have. So that means that my province should be not in that list that this subquery returns, right? Then you would have to double check your work. How do you check your work? Well, if this outer query returns something that this inner query returns, then it means you need to go back, right? See, because this inner query returns the hotels that have a positive review, but here we want to list the hotels that do not have we want to list the provinces where none of the hotels have a positive review, right? So which provinces are bad? There are no hotels with a positive review where we don't want to stop. So first we find out where there is at least one hotel with positive review, and then we're looking if our province is not on that list. Then it's a bad one, right? Something like that. Is that you could plug it in, but the best way is to make it dynamic, to put not in. All right? Okay. Now, sorry, what this query does, it's gonna return the number of positive reviews for each hotel, right? This one will do it, but it's setting the stage for something else. Okay, so now this is in general. It's going to return the number of positive reviews for hotel. Now what? What will this do? It will take the input. Sorry. It will take this query as an input. So you have this list that has a hotel name and number of positive reviews. The outer query is going to take this query and it's going to compute the average. Okay? Let's run this. Oops. Sorry, I didn't select something. I forgot to select this closing parenthesis and semicolon. Sorry. Now it's going to work. Here we go. So this is computing the average number of positive posts. So the first query, it returns the list. I was counting how many positive reviews are per hotel. Then I'm taking an average. And now I'm going to make it harder. I want to list the hotels that have the number of positive posts above this number. I could plug in 22 in a having clause, but am I going to do it? Of course not. What will I do is instead, I'm going to plug it in this query. So I have a two levels, nesting of the subqueries. See this? Where having count, not where, having count, and then in a having clause, I put that query above. So see, I showed you the steps here. The best way to do it is by steps. So here, well, the whole idea, I want to list the hotels that have about average number of positive posts. So then, first of all, I need to find out the average number of positive posts, right? But how do I find out the average number of positive posts? First, I need to know how many positive posts this hotel has. Then I take that average, and then I use that average in the having clause of this query. See what I'm saying? We don't just plug it in. We need to make it dynamic because data changes. You're not going to be running the query individually and doing copy and paste. You're going to be running the whole code, right? Especially when you do reporting or something like that. So just remember, for assignment 3, you have to have a query with a subquery, all right? And remember different types of the subqueries. So this is like a virtual table example. See this? So you're selecting, and we just as you just saw, right? It's a virtual table where you have a hotel name and a number of positive reviews. It's returning a virtual table. Then you take in that as an input. You take in the average, and you use that average in a subquery. Okay, and this is just an example of single value. So why do we put this query in a having clause? Think about this. Because we are eliminating the groups, right? We are filtering these rows here, the aggregated rows. See the hotel, for each hotel you calculated the number of positive posts and you're filtering this here, not individual data rows, you're filtering the groups. So that's when you use a having clause. This is a very frequent interview question. The difference between where clause and having clause. So take notes on that. And another one was the difference between count, column name or count star. Remember that one? And also difference between delete, truncate, and drop. Remember this part. All right, you will save it on the interview if you're getting a job for Reduce SQL. Okay. RStudio, well, at some point there were 3 environments. Thanks goodness now there is only one, but if at any time if you see 3, please select one that using only it's 1 capacity unit per hour. So is it now 1 environment? Yeah. Yes, I will share the PowerPoint. You will have the PowerPoint, you will have the code, and you will have the data sample. Of course, this is what I call customer service, right? You're gonna get all of it. No problem, that's yours, okay? So you're gonna select this one here, okay? Right now, I believe there is only one, but it was at some point, so I have to be proactive. I have to tell students to use the one that consumes less resources, okay? Sufficient for this assignment, all right? Then, if you are like me, if you like a lot of visualizations, watch out the disk space. If the disk space goes too high, you want to delete some visualizations, take screenshot and delete. Then you want to look at the occupied memory. Remember, in R, there is a list view and a grid view in the environment. The reason I like the grid view is that you can see the size of each variable. Like, for example, see here, this is a matrix M. It is 57 megabyte. After I'm done with data, after I'm done with text analysis, I probably want to remove this one, right? Remember RM command to remove from the memory, or you can also here, you can click on M and click on the broomstick to remove from memory, right? You can do it this way. It just shows you it used to show current utilization. Make sure that it's green, because if your disk usage is high, next time you try to load RStudio, it might be spinning. So that's one of the common issues that students have been reporting. So please be careful. Or sometimes if it does not load, there is an option to reset the workspace, all right? But please do yourself a favor, save the SQL copy, save the R code, copy of the R code on your local folder, all right? So you can upload the file in the object storage. Well, in your case, you're not gonna have files that you don't need. Uh, the ideal solution was reading it straight from database, but unfortunately, at the moment, it's not possible. So you're gonna read this from the object storage, all right? And how do we exit RStudio? After you exit it properly, well, there are multiple ways to stop the environment. You can go and stop it within a project, but Elena gets very paranoid and she follows the steps that I did for the last assignment, okay? Remember this, for the RStudio, if you're running the environment, the capacity hours that you use are going up. They're not staying the same, okay? They're not going down, they're up, 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 because the first number. That question is about the first number. It keeps going up, 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 all right? Well, it will go down. The consume hours will be set to 0, and the number of hours that you have will be set to 10 at the beginning of the month. But then, as you keep using it, it's gonna go, your utilization is gonna go up, 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 okay? Uh, and this is what's going to happen. If you run out of hours, but if you were able to launch RStudio before you run out of hours, you will still be able to use it. It's not going to kick you out, but you will not be able to launch it again. I tested it with a student. The student have like very, very, very little number of hours left. And I did a screen share. So she was able to launch RStudio and she ran out of hours, but it was her last session, the last time that she could launch the RStudio that month. She was not kicked out. She was able to at least get something to submit, okay? So just know that if you run out while using it, you will still, it won't kick you out, but you won't be able to restart. So just be aware, okay? And this screenshot, the interface is slightly changed, but you want to make sure that nothing runs. Closing the browser does not stop the environment. You need to stop the environment. If you forgot, immediately log into your account and do it as soon as you remember. All right? And they keep on increasing. R used to take half capacity hours. They keep on changing it. I believe it takes 1 hour. It consumes 1 per clock hour, not 1.5, but 1, okay? But here, if you don't stop it, it will continue running for 2 hours until it times out. So you're wasting 2 hours, okay? Uh, this shows a picture of no active environment. You want to make sure, but again, I would go look at all environments, not just the project. Well, this is just a picture just showing you network of terms. You got the code, but it just showing you how it looks like, because this code, I believe it may or may not be in a Word file, but here you're just looking at the subsets of terms, and each subset is in different color codes. See, this is me. I like the graphics, so I played around with this and I gave you the code, etc. All right, I just put a little bit of explanation here. So if I mentioned it before, like we launch the service, and if you don't see the option to add credentials, what's it gonna do? You're gonna make sure that you're on IBM Cloud, not on Cloud Pak, okay? Because here you're going back and forth. DB2 on IBM Cloud. RStudio is on Cloud Pak. You go to the project and you launch RStudio from the project, right? Remember that piece. And this is just, okay, look, some packages, You may have more than one package with the same function name. It's just an example. For example, there is an inspect function in a rules package that allows you to preview the rules. There is also inspect function in a text package, in TM package, that allows you to preview the documents. So what happens if you have two packages in memory? You get an error. It's confused. It does not know which function to call. So to fix it, you qualify the function name with the package name. Like for example, here, I put a rules column, and then I put my function name. Another mistake that students make is this. They take the data set for assignment 3 and they just plug it in without editing. They try to run the association rules method as is without tweaking any parameters. They get only 2 rules returned. Then they're trying to display the first 15 rules when they have only 2. And what do they get? They get an R error. This is a very common error that I have seen people make. How can you display the first 15 rules if you have only 2? What you would have to do is you would have to, this is your homework. You're gonna look at what input parameters the association rule function takes. Okay, just play around. You get in the examples that you got, it's using the default. But for your, if you're using a rules for assignment 3, you would have to use different values for input parameters, such as minimum support, etc. So I'm gonna let you explore it. You would have to change. Then, where do you go above and beyond here? For this method, you probably want to talk about the confidence, support, lift. You want to talk about the metrics and discuss some of the interesting rules. If you're doing perhaps a network of terms, you may want to talk about the subsets of terms. So you're trying to going beyond does not mean that you're going to install all packages that exist in the R library. I would say pick maybe 2 or 3 methods and focus in depth. You don't have to run all methods that are given to you in example. The tutorial, you're given an example. It's like, here is what you could do with your data. And you pick the ones that you would like to use, right? So just do that. Just because if you want to do everything, trust me, it's not gonna work this way. You run out of time and your analysis will be shallow. I would rather do less methods because less is more. Remember this, less is more, okay? More depth. Well, this is a common error here. Some students misspell the column name. The column name is tweet underscore ID and they miss the underscore. Then what's gonna happen? You're trying to run the query and it's not gonna know what tweet ID is. So you want to make sure that the column name in the query matches the column name in the database. And same is for the data, right? It was really nice when we could read data straight from the database. We could run the query to read the data, and then we could just work with specific results returned by the query. But I guess since it's not possible, you're reading the whole data and working with that, okay? But just keep in mind in general how you would do in the industry. You would probably read the data from the database. Sometimes maybe you could do some processing to the data and write it back to database, all right? Well, what is this? Undefined name error? It's because here I misspelled the table name, see? That you're gonna get this error in the SQL, right? So some additional tips here. You want to save the R code and a SQL code on your PC, but please don't use the Word. I recommend using Notepad, or you can do Notepad++, or you can do the TextPad, any text editor. But definitely not Word and definitely not a WordPad, because they add some characters and it gets very hard to fix the code, okay? So you want to work on ungraded exercises to get the maximum benefits of the walkthrough. Well, why? Okay, you have some query as an exercise, but on the next assignment, you have something similar. On assignment 3, there is something similar, but on a different data. All right? So today, it's an exercise, it's ungraded, but tomorrow, you're going to get a similar exercise on a different data that is graded. So please try to go, well, what do I mean to go beyond? It's just looking at the different parameters. So you're not gonna take the code that was run on sentiment analysis for airline data and apply to the GOP debate data in assignment 3. You have to edit the code for the data that you're working with. And please, please, please remember that there is a famous quote by Anonymous: the best way to get something done is to begin. Sometimes even myself find it hard to start. Once you get started, you get into it and you will love the assignment. All right? So try to like it, try to enjoy what you're doing, then it's going to be better. But definitely don't wait until the end, because what happens in the end, the code stops working, the DB2 service is down. It just happens at the end to teach people who wait until the end, right? It just like this assignment is this way. If you wait until the end, things break. So try to do it as early as you can, but of course you have to do the readings, right? Oh, another thing that students ask a lot, there are two quizzes. The first quiz is auto graded, so this is for you, sort of like a check your knowledge, right? You try to get as many as possible, but you need to get at least 72%. Well, it says more than 70, but it says at least 70. However, the lowest possible passing score in there is 72. It has to do with how it's structured. The questions are taken randomly from the pool. So when you retake it, you may get different questions, or some of the questions may have answer choices in a different order. So you're not gonna ask the classmates what is the answer to question one, because their question one could be different from your question one. You get unlimited number of attempts, so try that. And remember that there is something called questions reuse, right? Is there is a possibility that some questions on that auto-graded quiz could appear in the questions that you need to submit? We never know, right? Maybe. So the second piece is what you put on the answer sheet. And the reason it's something that you need to turn in, because auto-graded works only for multiple choice, true and false, and multiple select. All right? Oh, another thing is very important. Make sure that everybody knows how to count until 3. No, seriously. Because sometimes if you need to select 3 answers, the question stem explicitly tells you choose 3 answers. All right? If you need to select 2, the question explicitly tells you to choose 2. If it says to select 2, you select only 1, then you got the question wrong. All right? And you got the question wrong for not following instructions. If it does not say to select 2, and if it does not say to select 3, then there is only one correct answer. All right? So this is what people make the common mistakes, is not following instructions, because it tells you exactly how many answers to select. All right? It does not say select all that applies. It says select 3 answers or select 2 answers. All right? If there is more than one answer. Okay? So now, what questions do you guys have for me? Questions. I like questions. I like students who ask questions. Let me check, take a look at the chat. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Jason. You could also unmute yourself, because do whatever way works for you. All right? I'll give you a chance to type the questions if you want to type. But if you need help with ungraded SQL, yeah, please put the ticket in and I'll give you some hints. And I think my strongest part is SQL because of the degree in with database specialization. I did a lot of SQL. Okay, so yeah, so let's see. You mentioned there are 2 quizzes. Well, yes. One quiz is in a classroom. It's auto graded, right? So it's basically there. It's a review of the text it's a review of the text concepts and the SQL. There are some SQL questions in there. Okay, I believe so. So this is just for you. It's an unlimited number of attempts. Then there is also quiz that you submit. There is an answer sheet and the questions that you need to answer and submit. Right? I hope it makes sense. Or you love SQL too? Okay, okay. Yes, it does not have, there is no limit on number of hours. Yeah. So it's unlimited, and the more you practice, the better you get at it. Seriously. But yes, in the industry in the past, I did have to produce the report like I just showed you. You have one line per hotel, and each column you show in a number of positive rated, number of negative. You want to have like a one line. I did that in the past, something like that in a work environment, okay? But yes, SQL is my strongest part, seriously. So and again, one quiz is auto graded, another quiz is what you submit with the answers to 6 graded exercises. There are some graded exercises, right? And not quiz. But what keep in mind, but please don't tell this to people who are not here, and don't tell it to people who don't watch this recording. Some questions, there might be 2 or 3 questions in a quiz that you submit that come from that auto graded quiz. There are 2 or 3 questions in there that are verbatim, almost verbatim from that. It's a fair game, right? Why not? So just please do not share this secret with people who are not here and with people who are not watching the recording, okay? They have to watch the recording to find it out. All right? And promise that you're gonna try the ungraded exercises, because why not? The time is unlimited. So practice. Anyone else has questions? Questions. This is a good opportunity. Don't miss it. Going once, going twice. Well, if there are no questions, that we have to call it a night. And yeah, please remember to watch out. There's gonna be another session on the chatbots when we get to that topic. All right, so I'm gonna see you again. Okay, if there are no questions, that we're gonna stop the recording, I stop sharing, and we're gonna call it a night. And I wish you all good luck. You're gonna do very well, I'm sure. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so I'm gonna stop the record. Oh wait, something in the chat. Oh, okay, most welcome. Oh, so let me stop recording. Stop recording. Yes, more.